A big congratulations to our Asian American friends who had an enormous victory today. Unfortunately, millions and millions of empty-headed white people are thinking that it's one of their victories as well. And it couldn't be any further from the truth. Huge victory, and congratulations to Asian Americans for the tiny bit, the absolutely tiny, infinitesimal discrimination that they experienced in their massive overrepresentation at some of the biggest and brightest and most expensive universities. Somehow, you're able to come into the United States and be non-white and achieve fabulous wealth, far more wealth than the white population who founded the country, founding stock, as I like to say, and they're doing a wonderful job. They can pay for these magnificent schools, and their kids work hard, and they get the grades, and they deserve to be there. And then every now and again, not all of them are allowed to enter the universities, our biggest and brightest and best universities that we build here, that white people build here in the West. And then as a consequence, they get fired up. Understandable, because they're working hard. And when people work hard and they have innate talents, they deserve to achieve what they work for. Firmly believe in that, especially when it comes to my people as well. But of course, in this once great United States, a now hellhole that is controlled by anti-white oligarchs, that is no longer the truth. And we have reached a point in the devolution of the country, in the devolution of the West, in the white erasure of Western kind of Western civilization, where non-white groups are getting upset with each other. And we've talked about that before and what that means exactly. But you see, there still is a little bit of room to discriminate against white people. Oh, yes. This ruling today, we'll take a look at this headline right here. This ruling today doesn't benefit you white people. And I feel sorry for those out there who are called cuck-servatives for a reason, because they are in big celebration mode as their house burns down around them. Never seen people with such big smiles as they melt into their living rooms. Breaking Supreme Court strikes fatal blow to affirmative action in historic ruling. Should I read this like, what was that game? What was the game with the guy? Mortal Kombat. I should have watched some Mortal Kombat before I decided to do this roll in short, and I could have done some of that because I think it would be apropos. Bans race-based college admissions, all but 8 states impacted. What an awful word chosen there. You mean affected? All right, here we go. And then there is, why are they standing up there like that? Is that for some sort of firing squad? Oh, no, that's the actual, those are the judges. I'm sorry. Those are the judges that are standing there. Let's roll down here. Let's see what the author has to say. The vote was 6-3. Chief Justice Roberts wrote the majority opinion. All but 8 states use race-based affirmative action. The states that did have affirmative action at all prior to the ruling were California, Florida, Michigan, Nebraska, Arizona, New Hampshire, Oklahoma, and Idaho. Last October, the U.S. Supreme Court heard oral arguments in 2 separate cases about the consideration of race in college admissions. Students, you wonder, you go to these universities, and you wonder why the universities are increasingly white erased. And part of the reason for that is that in admissions, they consider the background, also the racial background. And as we've talked about before, affirmative action passed, as all things across the United States specifically, in favor of the angelized group, and that, of course, is the black race in Western civilization, which we are told in the anti-white narrative ceaselessly are wrongly put upon, wrongly abused, always innocent, etc., according to the narrative. And then once the law gets passed to benefit the angelized, wrongly put upon group, it then is expanded to benefit all non-white people at the expense of white people, because that, of course, is the reason for all of these policies, is to victimize the white race, to victimize Western kind, and then they need to find collateral beneficiaries. Who can we give this stuff to that we're taking away from white people? They heard oral arguments in 2 separate cases about the consideration of race in college admissions. Students in the Fair Admissions SFFA versus University of North Carolina, and students for fair admission versus Harvard University. At stake in the Harvard case was whether the university violated the Civil Rights Act by discriminating against Asian American applicants. Do you hear that, white people? Asians, not you, Asian people. Did at any point that because here's what hasn't changed: the moral tapestry of the West, which says that it is immoral to do anything that puts an end to the victimization of white people. That's why so many white people today refuse to point out our victimization, because they believe it is immoral to do so. They would rather argue about abstractions. And you see conservatives do this all the time. Republicans do this all the time. This is pathetic. Schools nationwide will no longer be able to discriminate against students on the basis of race. What a beautiful day for freedom, liberty, and justice, screams the empty-headed conservatives from coast to coast, north to south, ladies and gentlemen. The universities involved claimed race was one factor among many used in a while asserting student applicants and that their processes respect precedent. The conservative group involved in the lawsuit, however, the Asian conservative group, said that the colleges were engaging in reverse discrimination, which of course, whenever you use their terminology, you empower their ideology. When you say reverse discrimination, you are saying that white people naturally discriminate by using race as an admissions factor. As reported by Fox News, one Asian American student, John Wong, was rejected by 6 elite colleges despite having a 1590 SAT score. He said this was due to affirmative action. Now, of course, I argue that Asians, unlike that Wong, who clearly deserved to be there, unlike Wong, other Asians have gotten into universities on the basis of their race. This is my opinion. You can investigate it for yourself. But it was, of course, a process and product of the discrimination against white people, Western kind. That's the goal. Never look at this as something that is for the benefit or to do good for these non-white people, because I want everybody to be benefited. I want them to do good. I want everybody of every race to be given little inside favors when and where it's possible. But the reality is that this all begins with the narrative that white people are bad, that we need to have retributive justice to victimize white people today for the so-called crimes of white people in the past, and preventing white people from reaching the universities that they deserved and desired and worked hard and have the innate talents to be in is part of that process of retributive justice against white people. And then, of course, that prevents white people from going out into the workforce with these degrees from these universities that get them great jobs, enable them to start businesses, and etc. So undermines the white population in toto. What is not going to change is this: the anti-white morality of our day has remained the same. The anti-white moral imperative of our day has remained the same. So what group, pray tell, do you believe, if you are a thinking person whatsoever, will suffer, be victimized by this ruling that puts the burden on universities to placate Asian people so that they can be in the universities of their choice and that they have deserved by way of their work and accomplishments and etc. What group are they going to discriminate against? Well, it can't be against any other non-white group. There's only one group that it is legal and moral to discriminate against. And remember, it is the morality of the day, that zeitgeist, that informs every interpretation of every law, code, norm, etc. And in fact, in the very law here, and I don't know if it says in this particular article, but Roberts went out of his way to say that, universities can still discriminate against white people. Of course, he didn't say white people like he should have. And let me point out before I forget, because this is just a short and we're going to be rolling out in just a minute. But let me point out really quickly that for all of those abstractionists out there that would like to look at this, the same sort of abstractionists from different groups, it's not just conservative people or Republican voters or whatever. There are many other groups out there that are abstractionist minded And they think that if you apply a law, just like they did down in Florida, if you have some sort of abstraction that seems to work well in the abstract realm, that you're going to be able to inadvertently benefit white people by ending the victimization of white people. My friends, you cannot do that. Anti-whites, they merely rename things. They merely find other ways to interpret things. That's how this works. The power is in the interpretation. The power is in the naming. It's not in creating abstractions that you think are going to give you some sort of objective power, because guess what? You are appealing to some sort of sky ghost of fairness that never comes down and that never corrects and rights the wrongs of mankind. No, that never happens. You have to call things what they are. Anti-whiteism. If the Supreme Court wanted to put an end to anti-whiteism, they needed to say that it is henceforth illegal to implement anti-whiteism in admissions at universities. That's what they would have needed to say. But they didn't say that. In fact, they went out of their way. And here's what they used to be able to say. They used to be able to say to you that they will discriminate against you, white man, because they wanted a non-white student at the university. Now, they will just say that they will discriminate against you, white man, because they want a person who has suffered discrimination because he or she is non-white. Wow. That was made really complicated, wasn't it? You think this sets a precedent? Well, maybe you do upon first blush, but then, of course, you will look a little deeper and you will see the reality of this. This is the continuation of what we have seen all along, and it harms white people. It's not good for whites because, for one thing, a great many white people out there in their millions, especially the ones that are lovingly called cock-servatives for a reason, they will go around and they will say, it's merit-based. It's merit-based. It's all beautiful. It's merit-based. And that's all we want. The second way, of course, that it harms white people, connected to the first, which, by the way, if they're going around thinking it's merit-based and has nothing to do with race, how long is it going to take for folks who have the knowledge of what it's really based on and the experiences of students trying to get in and the instances of white people being discriminated against? How long do you think it's going to take of those to mount up and be large enough of a force for these people to realize that they're finally wrong? 1 year? 5 years? 10 years? How long do you think it's going to take of cases for them to finally realize that it's not merit-based? The other way that it's harmful for white people is white people have this horrible inclination to selfish individualism. And this idea of getting ahead on merit really feeds that selfish individualism that is leading the white race to the end of its line, that is ending Western civilization to the end of its existence. These fools, these white fools, all merit-based, hyped up on merit-based crack, like you'll see them in the next couple of days, like they write at the very opening of this article. They're going to think that, wow, now we can go ahead and retreat right to our multiracialism, socialism of a sort, networks of contacts, and continue selfishly, individualistically getting ahead and dominating where we're allowed to be a participant because we're still white, of course. Continue to dominate and to sneer at and to shit on the rest of the white race. No, what the white race needs, my friends, is no more so-called merit-based, white, selfish individualism. We need to be a people, and we need our destiny in our hands.